Hey, what's going on, guys? Meteorologist Jonathan Kagas with you to talk about the tropics. And really, for the first time, thankfully, all season long, there's something out there to break down. Puerto Rico, we're getting hit with some pretty heavy rain right now because of Tropical Storm Earl. Danielle continues at hurricane intensity, just kind of meandering along in the North Atlantic. We're going to break down both systems over this video. Again, Danielle remains a hurricane, just kind of hanging out in the North Atlantic, but this could head towards Europe over the next couple of days. Earl right now, still a disorganized tropical storm, but it is bringing some very heavy rain to Puerto Rico, causing some flooding issues, especially on the eastern side of the island. We'll take a look at that radar out of Puerto Rico in a second. Earl is currently forecast to become a Category 3 major hurricane as it moves to the east of Bermuda. And then there's another wave getting ready to push off of the African continent. So again, it is the peak of hurricane season, and really for the first time this season, it's starting to look like it. Good news is there aren't crazy impacts associated with these storms just yet. We are watching, though, some nasty conditions in and around Puerto Rico. Want to show you the radar out of Puerto Rico. And there you go, Earl right now, a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm, but it's going to be the heavy rain. You see the center of the storm spinning to the north and east of the Caribbean, north and east of Puerto Rico. Closer view, though, shows some of the heavy rain that has already fallen through the eastern side of the island, especially some of the really heavy stuff now located on the southeast side, south of San Juan for us. And these are some of those feeder bands that are kind of spiraling around Earl as it lifts to the north of Puerto Rico. So we are not going to have the direct landfall of Earl into Puerto Rico or any of the Caribbean islands. But some of these feeder bands, as a result of the system kind of dragging in all this tropical moisture, going to continue to bring some of that heavy rain into parts of the islands as well. Marigo, we're getting some of the heavy rain as these thunderstorms, again, kind of feed into Tropical Storm Earl as it kind of meanders off to the north. Here is the advisory as of 11 o'clock on Sunday. Next advisory comes in at 5 p.m. Deep thunderstorm activity around the center, trying to breathe a little bit. Some of those jagged clouds here representing the outflow and the colder cloud tops kind of ventilating the system. So signs that it's trying to further intensify and strengthen, and it is forecast to do so. I'll show you the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center in a second. But nonetheless, you still see some of those deep reds and purples in and around Puerto Rico. That's the satellite now picking up on those thunderstorms that I showed you moving through the island of Puerto Rico. But again, the center of the storm to our north and east, so this is not going to make a landfall in Puerto Rico, but it is going to lift off towards the north, and it is expected to strengthen. This is going to leave the mainland of the United States alone. This is not coming to the Turks and Caicos or the Bahamas either. So you see there are the Turks and Caicos, there are the Bahamas, but again, over the next several days, expected to get a little stronger, becoming the second hurricane of the 2022 hurricane season, getting even stronger as we get towards the middle and latter stages of this upcoming work week. You see Category 2 status by Wednesday, and then forecast to become a major hurricane as it works its way to the east of Bermuda. Bermuda is going to be out over here, so we're likely going to keep the direct impacts away from the island, still watching it closely as we are on the outer edge of the National Hurricane Center's official forecast cone. So again, in Bermuda, something to pay attention to, although it continues to look like most of the direct impacts should remain well off of and well off to the east of the island. So some good news there, but some nasty surf. That'll probably and likely be the main impact there, but keeping a close eye on that for you guys. Hurricane Danielle now continues to just hang out in the North Atlantic. Right now, not bothering anything. I'll show you the latest forecast track to kind of put in perspective where this thing is, but it is in a very atypical spot for a September hurricane, just meandering and strengthening in the North Atlantic. You see it there, wind speeds sustained of 80 miles per hour, gusts of about 100 miles an hour, the pressure dropping to 983 millibars. Again, we always talk about it. The lower that pressure gets, the stronger the storm is, and then the wind speeds start to gradually respond to a deepening system or a strengthening system. So as of 11 o'clock, again, that 80-mile-per-hour storm continues. It's going to likely pass north of the Azores, which are right here. But look at what is in its way. Ireland, United Kingdom, getting into France, maybe the northern side of Spain, getting impacts from what will likely be an extra tropical system right now. So it is going to lose its tropical characteristics as it moves over the cooler waters of the northeast Atlantic. But still, as of Thursday, a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm. And then where you see that L pop up, that's when it has lost or it's expected to lose its tropical characteristics, but could still bring some nasty weather to Ireland, getting into England as well, maybe parts of France. So something to watch as we move into next weekend, really into that 7 to 10 day time frame from now. You see, by Friday, Danielle, or what's left of it, the remnants of Danielle, are likely going to be right in here. So give it to the end of the weekend, and we could start to see some impacts crazy in Europe from this, at least losing a little bit of steam, but could still bring some really nasty weather to places, again, in Europe. Here is the wide view. And we mentioned about a third wave moving off of Africa. Here it is, looking a little healthy, disorganized, but some thunderstorm activity associated with this wave moving off of the African mainland. You see the Cabo Verde Islands here. The yellow highlight from the National Hurricane Center is where this thing could ultimately develop. Some models are indicating that we will see a developing system out in here, but this too looks like it is going to remain a fish storm no matter how strong it gets. It'll likely meander out in here, then get flung out. So regardless of what happens, we are going to watch that one closely, but this should not be a player for the Caribbean islands, should not be a player for Bermuda, and certainly should not be a player for the lower 48 of the United States. But again, as always, going to watch that closely. Again, there's the wider view of Danielle spinning up in the North Atlantic. Again, really has not moved much. It's been kind of rotating around itself up in the North Atlantic, and then you see the deeper thunderstorms in purple there. That is the thunderstorms associated with, again, Tropical Storm Earl. That is, again, not going to make a landfall, again, in Puerto Rico, but we are certainly feeling its presence as it's bringing some of that very heavy rain in terms of those feeder bands. Want to show you kind of where we stand. Again, we are approaching the peak of hurricane season. Climatologically, we are in the most active period. So what we're seeing now is not weird. It's weird where Danielle is, but certainly to have two named storms at the same time. We could get a third over the next few days, but again, that is something that is to be expected this time of the year. It's just been a very quiet, thankfully, year so far, and hopefully it stays that way. Or if we do get more storms like what we have, they just kind of bring low impacts and stay out in the middle of the ocean. The peak, climatologically anyway, is September 10th. That yellow line here represents kind of we are here. So we are nearing the top, the crest there of hurricane season. Just about less than a week away now from the peak of hurricane season before we start to see climatologically a decline as we get into October. October, though, is still considered to be peak season. Again, climatologically, we do see things start to wind down and we start to look closer to the Caribbean, closer to the Gulf of Mexico for more of those homegrown storms. We see a little flare-up in activity, climatologically speaking, again, as we push out of October before a sharp drop-off to go to the end of hurricane season on the last day of November. So again, moral of the story is we do have two systems out there. Puerto Rico, we're getting lashed with some of the heavy rain right now, even though the storm is pulling away from us. So no landfall. I think I said that 4 or 5 times. I just want to be clear that we are not going to be talking about a system landfalling on Puerto Rico, but some flooding is likely to continue with the very heavy tropical downpours associated with Earl. Danielle heading towards England, Europe, parts of the United Kingdom, getting in Ireland as well. Really in the next 7 to 10 days, we'll be talking about that likely still in our next episode, in our next video of Tropics Watch. And then we're going to watch that third wave again off of Africa. So with a short little recap here as that worked its way across the Atlantic. As of right now, that does not look to bring huge impacts. It may end up strengthening, but it should stay away from land, and really that's all we care about out there. The ships know how to get around those things, and as long as it's not impacting people, they can do whatever they want. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much again for tuning in to this edition of Tropics Watch. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Again, we put a video out every Sunday or as necessary. Again, we love to have you on the channel here, and as we continue through hurricane season, hopefully, again, watching the quietness continue. We've had this flare up, if you will, but that was to be expected as we continue to venture through the peak of hurricane season. Hit me up on Facebook, Jonathan Kegas News 6, or at Jonathan Kegas on Twitter. We'll continue the conversation over there. Thanks for tuning in, guys.